Okay, yet again, I have been undone by my own hubris. This is like the third fucking video in a row, maybe fourth, that I've initially fucked up the audio on and recorded a bunch of content only to realize that I need to re-record everything because my settings aren't right or it's not recording audio or anything. So fuck me, I guess. This is actually my fault this time, like that. Fool me once. What are they? That episode of BoJack where they're making fun of the what do you say? It was like fool me once, but I'll be fooled. But teach your man to fool me, and I'll be fooled for the rest of my days. That's pretty much where I'm at right now. Okay, back to it. All right. So other than the projects I'm already working on, I was going to be in a bit of a dry spell in terms of having content to talk about in the near future. Part of the problem is that even if I have a lot of interesting ideas and topics that I want to talk about, several of my videos are so outrageously long that I've already gone into those topics as best I could in other avenues, and revisiting them arbitrarily would just be pretty redundant. However, today, I was reminded of a quick little idea that I've had in the past that I surprisingly haven't talked about in another video, so that's what we're doing today. This was prompted by that new Fast and Furious movie that came out. I have not seen it myself yet, but I've heard a lot about it from people, and I've seen a bit of a disparity, an interesting disparity in how people have reacted to it, and especially going back and looking at how people have reacted to like Fast 8 and some of the other ones. Some people I've seen, like Cosmonaut Marcus, talks about the film in a way that makes sense to me, that it's incredibly stupid and a juvenile sense with wacky shit happening purely for the sake of entertainment and humor. Things happen regardless of logic, physics, the laws of reality, etc. And people like Marcus say that it's not the best in the series, it has some problems, but it's exactly what he wanted out of it. Then you have people like Charlie, who are complaining that Fast and Furious 9, let me run that one by you again, that Fast and Furious 9 is too unrealistic, that the plot is stupid, that it can't be taken seriously, and it has no traumatic stakes to be invested in. Oh! Now, since I haven't seen the movie myself, maybe they're both making valid points, maybe they're both dipshits, who knows? It could be anything. However, knowing that Marcus actually knows what he's talking about in regards to film media, and that Charlie is more or less just like any other fucking idiot on the internet with an opinion who thinks they're really smart because they heard a few buzzwords from their third grade English teacher about dramatic stakes, and that buzzword randomly happened to pop into his head while he was thinking about how he could sound smart while talking about this movie, I generally trust the way that Marcus has described the film, that it's stupid in an entertaining way, just like the previous FF movies after 3. And Marcus hit up this point on Twitter a little bit, where he said that it was kind of weird that people are now all of a sudden having an issue with the stupidity and lack of sound logic in the plot and events of this new dumbass fucking F&F movie. But I guess that means that they were somehow able to take the previous movies seriously, and were somehow able to accept the shit that happens in those movies as, like, totally legitimate, I guess. Okay, obviously the first couple of Fast and Furious movies are a tiny bit more grounded. The first movie is probably the only one that could be considered enjoyable while taking it seriously. Its dialogue and characters are a bit more human and natural. It has a very distinct tone and personality to it. It's much more gritty, and the characters have actual tension. And they haven't been, like, retconned and turned into weird superheroes with doing weird Mission Impossible shit. What I find wild about Charlie and people like Charlie that have similar shit taste and bad ideas and dumbass fucking everything is that it speaks volumes about two things. Not only does complaining about F9's lack of serious stakes and drama and the general silliness as the characters are very obviously invincible all the time and all that other shit, not only does that suggest that you are so insanely ignorant that you somehow missed all of those blatant facts in the previous movies in the series, but it also means that you want more of the attempts to be serious or trying to be dramatic, which have always been the worst and most boring parts of the Fast and Furious series, even before they became as goofy as they are now, at least after the first movie. So it means that you're actively begging for worse writing and less entertainment to be put on the screen. It means that you don't understand that the stupid shit for the sake of stupidity, that like your taste is so weak that you actually thought that the serious parts of previous Fast and Furious movies were somehow worthwhile content to consume. But in any case, the point is, this is something I've seen quite a few times, and I think it's very interesting. I recently saw something similar happen with the Yakuza series. Someone I was watching play through the series was able to take all of the plots in all of the games seriously, no matter how stupid, illogical, and downright retarded the plots were. No matter what didn't make any sense, no matter the gaping fucking contrivances, it was taken seriously. The stupidity was ignored. But then, when they got to Yakuza 4, which I and a lot of other people consider to be one of the best Yakuza games, where the plot is so fucking dumb, so outrageous that it loops back around to becoming wildly entertaining as you watch it crash and burn as the ludicrous plot twists and other shit go on. So, for this person, I was watching play it, they hated Yakuza 4. They thought, oh, this one, out of all of them, this is the one where they finally thought to themselves, maybe this is actually stupid. See, this is always going to happen when you have gaps in entertainment. Like, there's things that you can take seriously as entertainment, then there's things that you can consume in a completely different way as comedy once they get pushed too far. The gap in between those two extremes is the problem, and that's the area where things aren't fun. And everyone has their own level of tolerance, or more like awareness of this. Everyone has a tolerance for melodrama. Everyone has a tolerance for logic issues. You know, you all have suspension of disbelief, but that's the thing. Some people are not very good at identifying logic issues. Some people have low awareness. So, if you have someone who is so ignorant of logic issues that they go through the whole Yakuza series, and at worst, they only think of some of the plots, like in fucking Yakuza 3, when Kazuma's long-lost, never-been-fucking-mentioned assassin twin brother for nothing other than the fucking sake of making Kiryu think his fucking fake dad came back from the grave, for no other reason than to be stupid. Like, there's no way that the plot could be written in a way that it wasn't just for the contrived sake of being dumb. And there are people that consume that, and at worst they think, that's a little weird, that's pretty wild, that's out there. That's the kind of tolerance / ignorance I'm talking about. If you watched fucking Dom and Paul Walker drag that fucking police station vault through the city, and you're like, yeah, this is exciting action. This isn't stupid or physically impossible or a joke at all. If you're honestly that kind of person with next to no awareness of logic, that you can take all that dumb shit seriously without seeing the stupidity as something overwhelming or all-encompassing in the film. Basically, my estimation is that the people complaining about Fast 9 were probably just too ignorant and too stupid to recognize the millions of stupid and physically impossible and completely contrived nonsensical retconny things that happened this entire time in these previous movies, from like 4 onwards. Hell, this even happens in, say, Danganronpa, for example. The same thing. Danganronpa is as a series built on anime tropes. Its fundamental purpose is to mess with tropes, to make fun of tropes, to reimagine tropes. It's all about being tropey. But ignorant, dumbass Westerners, myself included, that don't know shit about anime tropes, they play those games and take most of it completely seriously. But then sometimes, when they see something they don't happen to be ignorant of, they see something that they actually randomly happen to be aware of, and they say, oh, that's a trope. I've seen that before. That's a trope. Oh, I don't like that. That's tropey. It's not like everything else in the series, right? The rest of the series isn't fucking tropey. Idiots. Of course, part of it comes down to understanding what's being consumed in the first place. Like, if you're missing something, if you're missing the point of something, if you don't notice everything in whatever you're consuming, you'll get blindsided like this when suddenly you do start seeing a few of the things that have been there the whole time, been there all along, just more blatantly or just randomly happening to be stuff that you can recognize. This happens with content creators too. Like, for example, there's a bunch of examples I've seen over time of people who want to make this kind of content, and they kind of, an audience gravitates towards them for one reason or another, but then over time, some portion of that audience starts complaining about new content that the content creator is making, even though the content creator hasn't really changed their original goal or anything. They've just become more clear about what they're doing. And it was the audience who misinterpreted their work all along and like egocentristically put their desire for what they wanted out of it onto the creator and be like, no, your content needs to be what I want it to be. That's not the content creator's fault that you misinterpreted their work all along, that you interpreted it the wrong way, that you didn't understand what they were going for at all. They haven't betrayed you by making different content. They haven't changed their content. You just didn't ever get it in the first place. You are always missing things that were there to clearly be seen. This happens with a lot of endings, of like long-running series. It happens with sequels. Same shit with like the end of DRV3. It's the same shit with even fucking like Last of Us 2, right? With these dipshits that somehow thought that Joel was a morally upstanding good guy in the previous game. Like, there are all these cases where at some portion of the audience only paid half attention, only noticed some of the things that were there to notice, and as a result, they had a warped understanding of what the point of it all was, and then they got mad about it when they felt like something changed, because they were finally forced to notice a difference between their dumbass, incorrect interpretation and the actual content that's being laid out before them. Of course, that's not to say that new content is like beyond criticism or anything, that it's never the fault of the creator, or that there isn't such a thing as content that changes. I mean, like Fast 4 onwards, for example, with them all becoming like G.I. Joe superheroes, and the plots just becoming ridiculous and filled with contrivances and logical errors and shit. Like, Fast 1 through 3 have dumb shit, they have silly shit, they have ridiculous shit as well, but like, the goal is obviously different, especially for Fast 1. But yeah, I mean, like, if you think the previous ones, like 4 onwards, weren't filled to the brim with contrivances and lapses in logic and dumbass retcons and stupidity for the sake of goofy, funny, comedy, whatever, it's not hard to prove that you just flat out were never paying attention. After you understand what the movie is going for, then I think it's fair to start judging it and deciding if it did a good job or not. But when you only consider yourself a long-time fan of something because you were so fucking dumb that you missed the actual point this entire time, that's no one's fault but your own. It doesn't mean that you can't have your own opinion, even if you're a dumbass who's ignorant of everything that you watch. It just, like, if you just hate outrageously stupid shit, like the Fast and Furious movies, go ahead. Well, more power to you. I mean, you know, it's your right to have that opinion. You should hate the other Fast and Furious movies, too. If you hate Fast 9 because it's stupid, well, newsflash. When someone actually pulls you aside and explains to you all the stupid things that you obviously missed in the previous ones, you should hate those movies, too. Everyone is going to have their own threshold for this kind of thing. Everyone has a threshold for stupidity that they brush aside with standard suspension of disbelief. Everyone has a threshold for stupidity that they view as problematic in a narrative that they want to be taken seriously, and everyone has a threshold for stupidity that they find so extreme that it becomes the point and becomes comedy. Of course, it's not like it's that easy to make good content. Like, raw stupidity isn't inherently funny. You still have to work to make it comedy, to make it enjoyable. In that sense, I think the Fast and Furious movies are more intentional with their comedy, and like something like Yakuza, I think, is trying to be more dramatic, at least in the main story, but just ends up being stupid and ridiculous a lot of the times. But it's hard to say, because there's other non-dramatic parts of Yakuza that are clearly meant to be comedy, so who can say? Like, is Beat Takeshi supposed to be this hilarious fucking running gag, or no?
Oh my god.
Who could it be?
Why do they even bother giving him a mask?
There's no way to tell who it is, though. Impossible.
How could, like...
Fuck, who is it? I'm getting real heated because I want to know.
Don't you dare act surprised.
What the fuck?
I can't.
What the fuck?
I can't believe.
Are they serious?
I can't believe this old man was evil the whole time.
I can't believe the evil old man is still evil. Look, chat is super fucking shocked as well.
Knife.
But who threw the knife?
Did you say who threw the knife?
Who threw the knife? What? Who's doing this?
Who could do it? Is it Naruto? Naruto, no, don't throw the knife.
It was Beat Takeshi the entire time.
Okay,
they keep hitting us with that, Pat. They keep blowing our minds with these reveals.
I'm noticing you're getting more of an Irish accent. That sucks.
What's up?
That's the worst.
Which part?
Oh my god.
What?
I hate that.
What was wrong? What happened?
I hate that.
What?
Fucking like.
I thought we were having fun.
He stabbed it. Like the fat guy in the green is like actively stabbed.
I think you might have missed one important part.
Yeah.
The bad guy was beat Takeshi, like the whole time. What's wrong? So like,
all right.
you know the guy who shot the Korean guy?
Yeah.
Beat Takeshi.
Yeah.
You know the guy who fought Kiryu in the smoke? Beat Takeshi.
That was beat Takeshi.
Mm-hmm. He because we thought he was good, but he's actually bad.
He was actually bad.
Okay, right, but then you know the ship that comes out at the end? What's wrong? What's wrong?
In the end, it all comes back to logic. It's the same thing with interpreting a story one way or the other. There's so many different schools of thought on how media should be interpreted. Death of the author? Authorial intent? Postmodernism? Regardless of how you choose to interpret media, whether you want to figure out what the creator wanted to express through their work, how they view their own work, whether you want to interpret your own meaning out of it, at the end of the day, logic is key. You can't interpret something without an argument. You need to have a reason for the way that you choose to interpret it. If you interpret a movie one way, but there's a shitload of evidence and logic that clearly contradicts the way you view it, then regardless of your school of thought on how to interpret media, it just won't fly. I generally tend to value authorial intent more, so I subscribe to, that school of thought. Like, purely out of respect for the creator. I know that if I were to make a work of art, that I would want others to understand what I'm trying to express to them. I hate it already when my ideas are misinterpreted or used to fuel concepts that I disagree with by, bending my words. So, because I want my words to be understood, that's why I respect the intent of the creator so much. However, even I have media that I consume and interpret beyond authorial intent. Take my favorite film of all time, American Movie, for example. I interpret American Movie as a cynical comedy that criticizes the social perception of success and artistry as a conduit for fame and fortune in the U.S. I do not believe that this was the intended message from the creators of the film. I don't think that they made it to be a criticism of the main character and the elements of his life that had led him to being the way that he is. But regardless, I can use logic and evidence to prove that my interpretation makes sense. I can use the movie itself to show that it is actually communicating what I say it's communicating, that it's a logical way to interpret the narrative. These people with Fast 9, they can't do this, because logic is not on their side. If they were better with logic, they'd have similar complaints with the other Fast and Furious movies. I can use logic to prove that the way they interpreted the previous movies is flat out incorrect, that it doesn't add up, that it was always outlandishly wild and stupid and inconsistent and nonsensical. Logic and evidence supports this. The characters have always been superhuman gods who are completely inconsistent, who just manufacture superpowers out of nothing, whose motivations and ideologies just shift on a dime, who change based on whose decision-making is inconsistent and idiotic, that the events have always been beyond physically impossible, that the plots have always defied all systems of how reality works, how culture works, how fucking police work, how anything works, how anything in the fucking world works. They literally go out of their way to make things stupid. Like, look at this fucking scene where they could have just been approached normally. Like, there's no requirement for something stupid to happen. They could have just had a normal fucking scene where these characters could have been informed of the plot, but no, they chose to make it stupid. I mean, fuck. They even have a joke making fun of people that, that somehow take these movies seriously and think that there are rules to them.
I think I figured it out. What's that? Rule number 3. Which is? There are no rules. What'd I tell you, Luke? I knew he'd get it in 3.
Regardless of how you interpret something, the most important point is that logic and evidence can back up your position, that your interpretation can't just be flat out contradicted as blatantly untrue. In the end, while there are always multiple different ways of interpreting any piece of media, and people are free to have their own opinions and ideas, nothing can make something logically unsound into something logically sound. That's why people that are good with logic tend to have more sound interpretations of things, even if you disagree with their taste. Nothing good ever comes from being ignorant, from just missing things that didn't need to be missed. I don't hate the Fast and Furious movies because I'm aware enough to recognize all of the physically impossible or illogical things happening every couple seconds, but it does make me more informed than someone who's been ignoring or unable to notice the stupidity this entire time. See, because even if you don't share my personal taste, even if you disagree with everything I've ever liked or disliked, at least with sound logic and clear observation, at least it will be more accurate than the views of someone else. Take those examples I gave of people who misunderstood the point of a series the whole time and then got mad when the ending came around and it wasn't what they thought it was. How they think something changed when they were just wrong the whole time. Their opinion is still valid, and maybe their recommendation might seem valuable to you because you share their personal taste. You share the things that they generally like and dislike. Like, if you hate rampant stupidity and a complete lack of narrative tension or dramatic stakes, you're still better off listening to me, someone who kind of likes the Fast and Furious movies, than someone like Charlie, who thinks that he likes most of the Fast and Furious movies, but now he's saying that he dislikes this new one because he finally noticed something that all the other ones have as well. He was just too stupid to notice. Because if you listen to him, there's no guarantee that you will be equally ignorant in the exact same way as he was when you watch these movies. If you hate stupidity in movies, there's no guarantee that you'll be able to ignore all the stupidity in the previous movies and then suddenly act like the newest one is insulting your intelligence, like Charlie. You know, you might share his taste, but that doesn't matter if he's too ignorant and unaware and lacking in sound logical arguments to even define the media that he consumes by his own personal taste. 90% of bad recommendations happen because the person who recommended something did so without even understanding the thing that they recommended, without seeing the things that they would criticize if only they noticed or understood them. Or the other way around. It could be that the new consumer, the person who's getting the recommendation, would totally like something if they understood it logically, but because they lack sound logic, they just take some random fucking issue with it and they decide to hate it for reasons that don't really make logical sense based on the things that they like and dislike, based on their other interests and personal taste. The most unpredictable part of figuring out who will like what isn't the matter of personal taste. It's a matter of logic. Sometimes, by ignoring logic, people just like or dislike things regardless of the other media that they like or dislike. When people don't consider logic, when like a random thought can pop into someone's head of like, oh, there's no dramatic stakes in the story, and they do no follow-up in their brain, despite the fact that they probably like a lot of other stories that they could equally consider to have no dramatic stakes, then they just randomly, illogically, inconsistently voice their dumbass criticism and dislike something that they should fucking like. Logic is king. It's the only way things can get organized. Think about interpretations and opinions with logic. It doesn't mean ignore how you instinctively feel. It just means maybe take 2 fucking seconds when you look at something and stop and think, does this add up? Does my observation, does my criticism here add up? Could I levy the same criticism to a million other things that I do like? Could I levy this praise to a million other things that I dislike? Is my criticism even consistent with other things that I know? Like, yeah. Sometimes you have media where the whole point of it is that it's trying to stretch your ability to apply logic and awareness to it. Like, there is a limit, to how good at logic a person can be. Like, how good are you at analyzing a plot? Are you good enough at logic and at analysis to read through Potok's The Chosen and get everything out of it that Potok left for you to uncover in his writing? Probably not. That's a pretty fucking dense book. But with most media, I think a base level of common sense is all that's necessary to consume it as it was intended, and anyone can just be vigilant with a completely average level of logical ability and get through it just fine. Shit like The Chosen falls under a category of being specifically for people whose personal taste involve obtuse, dense analytical work like that. But whatever. Anyways, that's all I wanted to talk about. I just find it very fascinating when people miss things and then finally notice them and then act like they're new when they just fucking aren't.